Hello CS112. Today I'll be going over a quick solution to Lab 6, which has to do with dictionaries. So per usual, I will be going over quickly what the prompt was, and I'm also going to be going through two different solutions today. One solution using the classic for loop that we all know, where it's for variable and container, and the second is the sort of dictionary per se for loop, where you have two variables here in dictionary.items. Now this is the for loop I prefer using with dictionaries, but any of these work. They all get the same effect on. So first I'll be going through the usual for loop, then I'll be using the .items for loop. So let's talk about what we need to do here. So you're going to be given a dictionary where each key value pair is a name and that name's list of grades. We want to return a dictionary where the name stays the same, but its corresponding value is the average of this list, the list before. So as you can see here, if you just add up all these numbers divided by its length, you get 8, so on and so forth. You guys have calculated the average several times now. Some of the rules is pretty much said you can't use anything but rounds and length, which is perfect. That's all we really need to do. So now let's dive right into the code here. I'm going to start with the code skeleton per usual, but this is sort of the shell that it gave us to work off of. Now, something you should immediately notice is that it wants you to return a new dictionary. It might be, excuse me, it might be easier. Some of you might have noticed to just directly modify data dictionary, but this might be part of a more robust program where we don't want to modify it. So that's maybe why they wanted us to return a new dictionary. So the very first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to create average dictionary, and I'm going to set it equal to these empty brackets here. Now, if I set it equal to data dictionary, then anything I do with average dictionary will also modify data dictionary. Learn more about these deep versus shallow copies later. But I could either set it equal to dict or simply an empty dictionary here. So now let's think about exactly what we have to do. Well, it's pretty obvious. You want to iterate through each of these key value pairs to copy the keys and the values to your new list, but you want to modify the values before copying. So the first thing I want to do is iterate through data dictionary. Once I am in there, I need to also iterate through data dictionary's value to compute the sum, or the average, sorry. So now I want to iterate through value to compute average. And also, I would like to add it to, add average to dictionary. Because we do want to, keep adding these things in place while looping through. So this is a very general code skeleton, but I think it's really all we need to get started. So let's see what we have here. So iterate through data dictionary. I'm going to be using the classic for loop for this one. So for I in container. Now, like lists, like I mentioned before, I had no idea what was happening when I was looking at dictionaries. So I'm just going to print I, use a bunch of print statements to see what I'm working with. So I'm going to save that. Let me actually create a command prompt here. Let me go to where I need to go, and I believe that's it. Yep. Let me run this. Actually, let me show a test case so it gets called. I'm going to call this one since it's shorter. Won't completely destroy my screen. I'm going to hit enter, and okay. So it looks like I'm printing a name followed by another name. So we can ignore this for now. This is just printing the return value, and average dictionary is still an empty list here. But okay, so I'm returning these two names. That means I must be the key. Okay, so how do I access the values? Well, it did show it on these slides as well here, where it had dictionary and then in brackets the index you were trying to get, but it's not technically the index, it's just the key at that location. So let's try that. Let's try data dictionary I. All right, now I am printing out the values I need to get. So this is what I'm going to be iterating through, because since we know that data dictionary I is always going to be the value, which is a list, we can, that's an iterable object. So we can just immediately start iterating. So the next thing down here is iterate through the value. So we know that data dictionary I is the value. So now for J in data dictionary I, going to represent the value, which is a list. I'm going to start computing the average, but like we've done the average before, we need to initialize the average, or this is technically where you need to reset it, but I'm going to initialize it right there. So now I'm just going to say average plus equals what? Let's figure out what I'm plus equaling. Am I plus equaling data dictionary A? Well, that wouldn't make much sense, right? Because data dictionary A is an entire list itself, but J is going to represent each of these innards here. So let's go ahead and print J just to make sure we know what we're working with. And yes, I'm working with the innards now, these lists. So first it prints out 90 and 85 for Dunya, and then 93 for Jose. So we're exactly where we need to be. So average plus equals J. Last but not least, we're going to add average to a new dictionary. So now this is a line of code that a lot of people struggled with, but if you saw the lab slides, they even left a nice arrow pointing directly to this line of code. This is how you modify dictionary content. So as you can see here, car is the name of a dictionary, mileage is the name of the key, and 150,000 is the value. So I want you to keep a couple things in mind here. Let's say that car already had a key mileage, like it does here. If I said car mileage equals 6, then this mileage right here will be modified to 6. However, if let's say this dictionary did not have this right here, let's see if I can just editing real quick. If this didn't exist, so this entire thing was gone here, and then I said car mileage equals 1500, well, first it will look for the dictionary name car, which is this guy right here. Then it will look for the key mileage, and if there isn't a key mileage, it will automatically create this key value pair for you within your dictionary here. So keep that in mind. If it does exist, then it will modify it, but if it doesn't exist, it will create you a new key. So the syntax for that again was a dictionary name, and we're trying to add it to average dictionary. Now what would go in here? This is the key. Now, so we know when I printed I out here, that was the key. So we can simply say data dictionary I, since we are not modifying the key at all, we're just passing it through and copying it over, equals the average we computed. However, I did not compute the average completely. I just found the sum. I need to say average divide equals length of data dictionary I, because obviously the average is adding everything up and dividing by the length of it. So this should work. I believe this should work. Let's just test it out. So I'm going to first test it with the test case 1, hit save, and then I'm going to run this bad boy. As you can see here, it returns the expected values. Let's go ahead and try test case 2. Whoopsies. Let's try test case 2 real quick. And as before, it returns the expected values. So now I'm going to show you my preferred method of using .items in a loop. So I'm just going to delete pretty much all of this. It's pretty much the same exact structure, but I just want to show you the .items way of doing it, because that is, in my opinion, the better way. It's more readable. You can directly access all of them without having all these indexes. So anyways, so it's going to be for 2 variables here. I like to use key and value because that makes sense, but you can use I, J, potato, potato. These are just variables. So I'm going to still say in data dictionary, except now what are key and value here? Well, first I need to put .items, of course. That's a built-in function, so you need to add the parentheses. Now data dictionary.items. So now what is key and value? So all I need to do here is print key, and that should access Dunya and Jose. Let's go ahead and run that. And yeah, Dunya and Jose. Now for the values, I just need to type value. Let's run that. And we're getting all the values. Now, see how I don't have to do anything like data dictionary and then I or anything like that. I can just access directly the key value pairs through these 2 variables. Now the key will always be the first variable, and the value will always be the second variable. So like before, I'm going to set average equal to 0 here, so it resets every time I go to the next key value pair, so I'm not getting these giant averages. So I'm going to say average equals 0, and then I'm going to iterate through, simply say for v in value, I'm just going to say average plus equals v, similarly to what I had before, and then I'm going to say average divide equals the length of value. And then, like before, it's going to be dictionary name the key equals average, and so let's go ahead and save that and run it. And I'm getting the expected output. Let's just test both of them at the same time. And there you go. So you're getting the expected output here. So I think it's very important that you guys sort of understand this right here. How I explained before, how if mileage exists, then it will update that key. But if the key mileage does not exist, it will add a new key value to your dictionary, to the end of your dictionary, to be specific. And it's important to know these different ways of iterating through dictionaries, how to access keys and values this way, and how to access keys and values the .items way. Practices here, and yeah, let me know if you guys have questions.